What is going on, guys? It is your boy Sydney. Now, something very interesting just happened this morning, but I'll go into that later. But it's to do with monetization. Basically, they've monetized my channel after 6 months, so we'll see how that goes, shall we? Yes, I know, back my videos up, but I'm not going to harp on about that. What I am going to talk about today is victim blaming. Now, I am sick to death of the BS that has been rolling out from the mainstream media since the tragic death of Eurydice Dixon in Melbourne. Now, I'm going to just say right here, right now, what happened to her was disgusting, what happened to her was tragic, and the individual, note I said the individual responsible for the death of Eurydice should be held culpable for all crimes committed against her. I know that doesn't bring her back, and I know that doesn't make it any less hurtful for her family. But the goal of people like Lisa Wilkinson, and you've got all these feminazis, and what I mean by feminazis are people that subscribe to feminist ideology but have militarized it against men to further their own agenda. Right? People like Lisa Wilkinson saying, tell men, don't tell women, how to stay safe. Tell men not to rape. Well, I'm sorry, Lisa, but I'm pretty sure we're all well aware of the fact that we shouldn't be raping. Even rapists know they shouldn't be raping. Robbers know they shouldn't be robbing, right? But you don't see people stop stealing shit just because it's not socially acceptable, right? In the World Health Organization report on domestic violence, and this may seem a little disconnected, but bear with me. A couple of the biggest factors behind domestic violence were mental illness and alcohol and drug abuse. Now, we have all of these feminists constantly saying, but men do the majority of domestic abuse, right? Even though men cop the majority of violence against us, women cop the majority of domestic abuse. And if we're talking about physical abuse and violence that can hospitalize, then it's not like it's 100%. Even 1% is too much. From woman to man, from man to woman, from man to man, or from woman to woman. Interestingly, it's been shown that lesbian partnerships have the highest rates of domestic violence, but I digress. Now, I cut myself today, right? At work, I cut myself. Now, when I cut myself, yes, I put a band-aid on it. But do you know what else I thought to myself? I thought, Sydney, how could you prevent yourself from getting cut again in the same manner? And, my inner voice said, well, that's a great question, Sydney. I think we need an answer to this. Let's look at some of the variables. And the variable was moving my hand in a rapid motion too close to a sharp edge. Cool. Well, maybe if I don't move my hand in a rapid motion near a sharp edge again, then what I might actually find is that I don't get cut in future by the same means, right? See, I've actually removed the cause rather than just putting a band-aid on it every time, right? Because if you keep sticking your hand in a knife drawer, right, and then you go, well, nobody should be telling me to take my hand out of a knife drawer. You should be telling knives not to cut. And I know that's probably a pretty poor analogy, given that all knives are designed to cut. See, the difference here is that men are not designed to rape. Right? We're designed to be able to procreate. We're designed for multiple things. But one of the things we're not designed to do by nature is rape. So I'm really not grasping the neurological process, which is clearly not present in the brain or lack thereof of Lisa Wilkinson. Right? Because she has a husband, and I'm pretty sure that, being the staunch feminist that she is, she would have cried "Me Too" and been screeching about it all over the media if she'd been raped. And, well, he's a man, right? Or he's a mangina, which is why he's married to her. I don't know, right? I'm just putting it out there, Lisa, that if you think all men are rapists, then perhaps you're also indicting your own husband, who you chose to marry, which means that you were pretty stupid to marry a rapist, weren't you, Lisa? Just like literally, just a bit of basic logical process would not go astray. Just wouldn't go astray, right? Now, let's just assume that all men were rapists. Just for a moment. Let's just assume that, right? Let's just assume that these feminist ideologues are correct. Which they're not. But let's just assume for a moment, hypothetically, that they are correct. Well, if all men need to be taught how not to rape, what do you suggest we do to teach men? Do you suggest that we start multiple campaigns telling people that violence against women isn't okay? Do you suggest, I don't know, throwing rapists in jail? Do you suggest perhaps prosecuting anyone who rapes or sexually assaults female victims? Oh wait! That already happens! All of those things that I just mentioned. Oh, but we need to stop locker room talk. Yeah, because I'm sure that females don't talk about dicks when they get together and compare their boyfriend's penis sizes. Right? We get told that, you know, guys use their cars as a dick measuring competition. It's like, well, females use private conversations as a dick measuring competition, right? They love to share photos of their boyfriend's dick. Like, I literally, you know, an ex-partner of mine that I was quite serious with was like, oh, you wouldn't mind if I showed your photo of your dick to one of my work friends, would you? And I was like, yeah, not really, because, you know, obviously Sydney's got it going on. And I was like, yeah, I mean, if you want to share it, then that's fine. And she goes, oh, good, because I already showed her. I was like, why did you even ask? Seriously. You're just seeking validation. Pointless. What a waste. What a complete waste. And Thomas says they won't dare mention that he was an autistic, involuntary celibate who had an opportunistic rage that night. Well, that is exactly right. That is exactly right, Thomas. Now, right, so let's get back to the causes of domestic violence. So alcohol and drug abuse, right? Now, if you feminists are saying that men are behind the majority of domestic violence, then perhaps we should start addressing the problem rather than just putting a band-aid on it. So how about you feminists organize and push for some government funding so that men who have alcohol problems or drug problems can seek rehabilitation so they won't violently abuse or rape anyone or whatever it is that you claim men are doing all the time, right? Oh, no, we need to put more money into the campaign that demonizes men and says that violence against women isn't okay, even though we already all know that violence against women isn't okay, right? And let's think of this other situation, right? So instead of looking at helping men with mental health issues so that they won't commit domestic violence, because it's one of the major causes of domestic violence. So if you remove mental health issues, then that won't be something that will be a causal factor in domestic violence. Or we could even give support to men who have got drug and alcohol problems, right? So that they won't commit domestic violence. No, we can't do that. We can't do any of these things. We can't actually fix the problem, right? We can't, that's just victim blaming, right? That's just victim blaming women to suggest that they have to give up their domestic violence awareness money to help men to stop having themselves in a situation that might cause them to be violent in a domestic situation. The logic just astounds me. Absolutely astounds me. How does it even work? Really? All right. This government needs to change, seriously. The Liberal Party of Australia used to be conservative. It is now leftist. Malcolm Turnbull is a self-proclaimed feminist, and he is the Prime Minister of Australia. Just like we got Justin Trudeau as the Prime Minister of Canada. He's a self-proclaimed feminist. He's not going to last long. Let me give you the hot tip on that. Neither is Malcolm Cockfall either, and Bill Shorten's not much of an option either. So we need to wake as many people up to the fact that they have other options, like the Liberal Democrats Party. And if you're not a fan of Senator David Levenhelm, unlike me, then there's Pauline Hanson with the One Nation Party, who one of her policies that she did mention at one stage was that she wants mandatory DNA testing for all new births. It's a good one for all you MGTOWs, because that way, even if you do have a child later down the track and it turns out not to be yours, no financial responsibility for a kid that's someone else's. The only responsibility you might have is the STD that you caught from her. Cory Bernardi, Australian Conservatives, also a very good option, right? Also a very good option. But yeah, the I can't remember. Liberal National Party, the Greens, and Labor are all to avoid in Australia if you are an Australian. And I even had an email today from a guy that got Me Too'd at work shortly after Me Too started. He now runs his own business, and they even caught the alleged incident on CCTV, and his innocence was 100% proven. But of course the managers and the HR, all three of them looking into this situation, all had vaginas. Yes, you know, the V word that ends with vaginas. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that they were all feminists, given that they made him sign a piece of paper admitting to it so that he could keep his job and keep his hours, and that they were letting him off with a warning. And they said that even though it was disproved, they can't actually punish this woman because that might discourage other women from coming forward and feeling comfortable with making, you know, that they don't want women to not come forward if they feel uncomfortable in the workplace. And now the forced signing is against the law, but now he's working to save up money so that he can litigate and go in guns blazing. But it costs a lot of money to fight against stuff like this. And did you know that one of the career paths that you can actually take from a gender studies degree is human resources, government policy and planning? I mean, wow, just wow. PR, the media. Where do we go from here? But I'm glad that Terence Popp actually addressed the White House the other day. If you guys haven't heard of Terence Popp, it's T-E, I can't remember if it's one or two R's, but I'm going to spell it with one for now. T-E-R-E-N-C-E-P-O-P-P. Go and check him out on YouTube also. He is a fellow MGTOW, and he directed people at the White House address. Like, when I say White House, I'm talking like Washington, D.C., like President of the United States, White House. Smash that thumbs up button while you're at it, guys. And now look, I know I've sort of spoken a lot about a bunch of different topics in this video, but look, to get to the crux of victim blaming, right? With this Eurydice Dixon, tragedy, the Victorian police were saying, just be vigilant, be situationally aware, keep an eye on what's going on around you. And it's interesting, right? Because when I did my security course, they also told me about the importance of situational awareness for your safety, right? And I mean, that's just common sense. So you're not finding me doing my security course saying, I feel like I'm being blamed as a victim for being told to be situationally aware and take care of myself and take precautions. No, that's not victim blaming. It's not victim blaming at all. In fact, to be situationally aware is to have autonomy and control over yourself. And isn't that what feminists want? For them to have bodily autonomy, for them to have control over themselves, for them to be safe. Now, it's all very well and good to demonize all men and say that men shouldn't be out after dark, and say that men shouldn't be allowed to be alone in parks without the supervision of a woman, or whatever ridiculous idea they're going to come out with next. I sound a bit like Justin Trudeau there. But I promise you I'm not. So, let's say, for example, if I were to go out somewhere and I walked across the road and I wasn't looking where I was going, right? And I wasn't keeping an eye on my surroundings, and a car ran a red light and it hits me and I become a paraplegic, can't walk anymore, right? So I can do one of two things. It's really only two things to do. I can say either A, you know what, I really should have been looking where I was going, and also I wouldn't have been in the vicinity of this scenario had I not chosen to go out today. So while this really sucks, ultimately this is on me. I'm taking responsibility for it, personal responsibility, right? I had the autonomy, had the bodily autonomy to go out and to walk across that road without looking, and I made those free choices. So, shit go, but it's on me. And I mean, the alternative really is to say, well, it's that person's fault for running a red light. I just completely deflect any responsibility for my own personal safety, completely ignore the fact that I could have done more. Now look, I don't know the situation exactly surrounding Eurydice's encounter with that mentally ill guy in the park. I don't know the exact details. I don't know if he could have been seen. I don't think we'll ever really truly know. But what I do know is that the Victorian police don't want to see this happen to anyone else, right? And it's probably not going to happen for an extremely long time, but you're not going to go for another 100 years without something like this happening. There's mentally ill people out there, male and female. So, to blame, and you've got the whole consent courses in universities now saying that if a male and a female are both drunk and they have sex, then it's rape because only the female can't consent. Like, are you infantiling women or something? Are you saying that they're incapable of making decisions while intoxicated, but men are? I mean, is that not totally against everything you stand for? Right? Surely you can give women more credit than that, right, feminists? Right? I mean, surely you think women are intelligent enough to be able to make their own decisions, including the decision about how intoxicated they wish to become, right? And clearly, they should have the right to get as drunk as they want, right? Even if that means losing control of their own bodily autonomy, right? And being able to take responsibility for their decisions because they're so strong and empowered, right? Oh, no. Because the woman can't consent because she's drunk, it's the man's fault, and he raped her if he's also drunk. Even if he also has no control or knowledge of the action taking place. See, this is the ridiculous hypocrisy. Feminists want women to be seen as just as capable, just as able, just as intelligent, having just as good a judgment. But then they turn around and they say, well, a couple of drinks and a woman's unable to make judgments and decisions, but a man is. Like, it's the ultimate irony. The ultimate irony and hypocrisy. By the way, I just want to give a big shout out to you guys. Thank you so much for joining in the chat. I really appreciate you all. MGTOW Investor, Live Free, Harmonic Live, my man, Paul Slack Bob. What else we got in the box? Charlie Brown, AU, God's Elect, Simon Says News. Thank you so much again for that thoughtful comment earlier, Thomas. That's a cool avatar you've got. What else we got? We got Toyman Blood and Boxy MGTOW. Welcome, man. Welcome. I'm glad you're loving the channel. Appreciate that, man. I look forward to giving you some good content moving forward. And Men Matter as well. Men Matter. Good to see you, man. Adam Nelson, glad you caught it as well. And James Marley. Man, I should do a whole video on what you asked me about. Omega W, my man, and Buddy Swan. Enrico. And anyone I've missed, I'm very sorry. Thank you so much, guys. So I think we need, as a society, right? So we know not to rape. We know not to hit women. Doesn't mean it's never going to happen, right? Well, women know that they shouldn't be hypergamous, but they are, and most of them don't care. Women know that they shouldn't make people want to commit suicide, but they either knowingly or unknowingly do it by way of divorce rape. Right? What? You know what, Lisa? You should tell all women not to take any money from a man because they're earning their own money and they're so strong and independent that they don't need our money. So you should tell all women not to take money from men. You should tell all women not to demand that we pay for shit. You should tell all women that they need to buy men stuff on Valentine's Day too. And you should tell all women that they should be proposing to men, since men and women are equal, and since up until now this oppressive patriarchy that they claim has apparently been telling men that they're the ones that have to propose. Women pendant, it's your turn to propose, and then it's our turn to say no if we don't feel that you're up to our unreasonably high standards, right? What do I mean by unreasonably high standards? Well, I mean someone that looks after themselves, someone that is logical and intelligent and doesn't think that I'm oppressing them and doesn't think that staring at them for 3 seconds is rape, right? Just all the basics, really. Just some simple basic. What's going on, Kenshiro? Right? That's what I'm talking about. But look, guys, victim blaming is the most ridiculous term, right? Yeah, okay, so let me give you an example of victim blaming, right? Of actual victim blaming. So let's say, for argument's sake, there's a woman and she stabs a man, right? And then you blame the man for what he must have done to the woman. That's victim blaming. But if the man didn't know the woman had a knife, then how is he to know to avoid it? Right, so just to clarify, if someone doesn't know that you have a knife and doesn't know that you're dangerous, then they won't know to stay away from you. So if you then blame that person who wasn't to know any better because they got stabbed, that's victim blaming. But if you tell that person, hey, you know what? You should be careful. You shouldn't turn your back on that person because they could have a knife and they might stab you, and then you turn your back on them and then you get stabbed, right? It's not really victim blaming to try and warn people that that person has a freaking knife. It's only victim blaming if you've already warned them and then they do it anyway, right? We got Brizzy Boy here. What's going on, Brizzy Boy? He says exactly what just happened to my mate John, that exact thing. She stabbed him, he got arrested for domestic violence. Duluth model, feminist Duluth model. You don't believe me that the Duluth model is a feminist construct? Go and look up Duluth model, D-U-L-U-T-H. This is exactly what I'm talking about, right? So if it's a woman that's being given sound advice on how to keep herself safe, that's victim blaming. If it's a man getting given sound advice on how to keep himself safe, that's misogyny, because you should never assume, presume, or suggest that a woman would do something harmful, right? Because women are just sugar and spice and everything nice, right? And you know, if something happens to a woman, right? If Eurydice Dixon gets raped and murdered in a park, as tragic as it is, you know, she gets a candlelight vigil with hundreds of people. She gets mainstream media coverage. She gets a whole segment on Q&A talking about how to tell men not to rape when they already know it anyway, because we've had it shoved down our throats by this leftist feminist agenda in the mainstream media for the last decade now, with absolutely no concern for helping men who might be you know, potentially a risk for women, to overcome the things that are causing them to be a risk to women, in the instance that they are one of the few that are suffering from things that afflict them that could cause them to do unspeakable things. But the very, very same day that Eurydice Dixon was murdered, there was also a man murdered by his ex. Now, that man was in his apartment, and his ex set fire to the apartment and turned off the water to the apartment. Well, it was a house or an apartment, but the residence that he was in, he couldn't get out. She literally set fire to the residence, and she turned off the water so he couldn't put the flames out. And he ended up in critical condition in hospital with burns to 100% of his body, and he passed away, right? Now, whatever happened to Eurydice must have been agonizing while she was still alive, but whatever happened to that man must have been even more agonizing while he was still alive, and the media doesn't give a fuck. So, you know what? Spare me the details, Lisa Wilkinson. I don't want to hear your bullshit about victim blaming, saying that police that are trying to keep women safe so this doesn't happen to any more women. I don't want to hear your BS, Lisa Wilkinson. When you're saying that the police coming forward with good suggestions on how to ensure your personal autonomy and safety, I don't want to hear it when you're calling that victim blaming, Lisa. Right? Because you don't care about any man that's the victim at the hands of a woman, do you? You only care if it's a woman at the hands of a man, because that's an opportunity for you to push your agenda. This is an opportunity for you to push your narrative that all men are violent and women are just innocent, weak victims. But they're so strong and empowered at the same time because they're feminists, right? Everything you say is hypocrisy, Lisa. Right? You got pissed off with the previous show you worked on because you were getting paid less than the man, even though you were less of an attraction in that particular instance than the man. So you went on and moved on to the project, right? So you moved on. And now you're getting paid 5 times more than your female colleague, right? So you got more than your, I mean, you're basically the co-star, Lisa. You're basically the co-star, right? And now you're of the show and you're getting paid less than the star. And now you're one of the stars, you're getting paid 5 times more than your colleague. And you wonder why she's upset, right? You wonder why she's pissed off. And now you're actually wanting to like pick and choose which shifts you work, Lisa. Isn't that something called work-life balance? Isn't that the thing that we've been telling you all of this time causes the pay gap, right? Because women actually have preference to have more of a work-life balance, right? But yet you, no, you sit there and you virtue signal and you talk on, and you crap on and you're saying, oh, you know, the glass ceiling, you know, women get paid less than men. Woman, I'm pretty sure there's not too many dudes getting paid $2.3 million a year to spout the BS that you spout every single time you open your mouth on that show, right? And you call that patriarchy, you call that misogyny, right? You call that systematic discrimination against men. Really? Really? Ridiculous. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. It's good to see you all, including you, Brizzy Boy and Trifol and Tony V. I don't know if I missed you, Enrico. All right, guys, I'm gonna bounce for now. Good to see you all again. Thank you so much for joining in. And I have said to you before that my videos aren't monetized as of tonight. All videos moving forward will be monetized unless they're very controversial. So if you do want to help me out and you really like a video, feel free to share that with your friends. Feel free to share it on social media. Feel free to smash that like button if you feel the compulsion to do so. And you know, just text it to a buddy if you find something amusing and you think that they're gonna get something out of it, especially if they're in dire need of some red pills. Anyway, guys, I look forward to catching up with you next time. But until then, peace.